All right, I guess we can start. So we will see when the others will join on later. So first of all, let me just share my screen for the presentation. All right. So please let me know if you unable to see the screen or unable to hear me. So yeah, thank you for joining our webinar. It's the UK Business Visas Unlocked. It's all created by our company, Migral. So we are a digital platform that helps to process the sponsor license and other relevant to that business visas. And we have 50 plus successful startups and innovator founder cases with 87% success rates within last year. And so the topics that we will be discussing today on this webinar are sponsor license and skilled worker visa, self-sponsorship routes, and innovator founder visa. You would be able to, so there is a button for a Q&A to leave your question. So you can leave the questions throughout this webinar whilst you will be listening to the lecture from Alexandra. And then by the end of the lecture from Alexandra, we would be able to go through those questions and answer them to you and help you with your process. So I'm glad to present Alexandra Makrova. She is she's a lawyer and our co-founder of Immigral, specialist in UK business visas with over 6 years of experience. And within the last year, she's done over 50 plus successful innovator founder visas and sponsor license. She has an Immigration Advice Authority registration. So that's used to be called IOAC. Now it's called IA, and rating 5 in review solicitors. So I'm happy to give her the words and start talking about our topics.
Thank you, Ilya. Thank you for the presentation. Nice presentation. Nice to see everyone this evening. So let's start. So the first group of questions is dedicated to Innovator Founder Visa. So overall, Innovator Founder Visa is a perfect visa for entrepreneurs, those who want to start their own businesses in the UK. There are certain major criteria for that. And first of all, as you can see, even from the name of the visa, the business should be innovative. So it should be something that doesn't exist on the UK market. So normally when we speak with candidates who is interested, who has potential investment into this business, who has this entrepreneurial spirit, we're making sure they do understand that it's not just, I want to run a business, I open it. They need to do a deep market research, UK market research, to ensure that it's something new and something beneficial for the UK. Quite often we do actually get questions from the candidates about, oh, I have a successful business I'm running like outside the UK, but can I bring this business to the UK? I've done a research and it seems like this business idea is not existing on the UK market. So it was actually a controversial question before, but relatively recently, like previous year, the Home Office confirmed that's fine. So for example, if you have successful business outside the UK, something like that doesn't exist here, that's an opportunity for you just to basically relocate business to the UK, get a visa, and after that, start your residence here, grow your business. Obviously, as you also might see on the screen, there are other criteria apart from just innovation. So they do look, like when the Home Office assesses the business, they do look into availability and scalability of the business. And obviously, this is a visa which leads to indefinite leave to remain. So for those who are not just like relocating or wanting to like stay in the UK, but want to get settlement in the UK and after that citizenship, that's a great route and one of the quickest routes because it's only 3 years until you get your indefinite leave to remain. However, normally the criteria to get ILA are quite hard. So we do find some candidates, struggle with satisfying them because apart from just, setting up a business, registering, starting some operations, in 3 years, in order to get indefinite leave to remain, you need to achieve certain milestones for the business. So there is a list of like 7 growth criteria, basically. There are 7 of them, and you need to satisfy at least 2. So some of them would include, like, for example, £50,000 investment into your business and actively actually spending this money. So not just investing, spending. That's relatively easy in 3 years to spend 50,000 on your business, and most likely you're going to spend more. So normally all the clients we have who's applying for settlement after Innovator Founder visa, they do rely on this one as one of the criteria. However, when we look further for like second criteria, so we either need to show like patent application and good research and development for the company, or we need to show good revenue. It's like 1 million revenue or 500,000 revenue with 100,000 on expert, or we are looking into creating jobs in the UK for British and settled people. So we're like talking about like 5 people at least, and like certain minimum salary. So it's sometimes quite hard, and that would lead actually us to an alternative option, a self-sponsorship route, again, for those who has entrepreneurial spirit, want to run their own business, but we will discuss it a little bit later. I think would be good to touch up on some other potential issues, apart from it's hard to get ILA after this visa. So overall, when we get assessed, because it's a two-stage process to get Innovator Founder visa. So first of all, you need to get an endorsement. So there are only like 4 endorsing bodies, and technically it's actually 3, because the 4th endorsing body, it's a very like closed program, so you can't just come to them and ask for endorsement. So you need to submit your business plan with some other documents, get assessed, get interviewed, and after that, endorsing body decides whether they're going to grant visa or not. So when we speak with endorsing bodies in terms of like how many applications do you reject, how many applications you accept, etc. So they normally say that more than 50% of applications are rejected. Therefore, again, the threshold to pass the endorsement stage, to get this approval to even apply for the visa, is quite high. And that's what we normally say to candidates, like, prepare a proper business plan, sit with your lawyers, sit with your business plan writers to ensure you satisfy all of the criteria before you even go to endorsing body. Because it's also not free to apply for endorsement. They charge you extra, like they charge you £1,000. And unfortunately, we see the candidates who come to us and say, oh, like we applied, we got a rejection. Well, what can we do? It's like, well, we should have started properly from the beginning, and we might have avoided that. In terms of issues, yeah, obviously, one of the main issues when candidates get endorsement refusals or even refusals at the visa stage, the next stage, quite often innovation is challenged. So Home Office can come back to you at the visa stage, even if the endorsing body approved your application, they come back and say, oh, actually, we found this company, they're doing very similar things or identical things, they're established on the market, therefore innovation is not met. So again, it all leads us to this first statement I've made. Deep market research is definitely a must. But obviously, if someone has like some questions about Innovator Founder visa, I'm more than happy to answer a few of them for Q&A, because I can see time-wise we have to move to the next topic. Correct, Ilya? Thank you. So yeah, as we see, Innovator Founder is not for everyone, and it's first of all, you need to invest your own money, you need to run a business, and obviously it's hard to get ILR after that quite often. So the alternative option is work on a skilled worker visa. And so this slide is more dedicated to like more classic employment, where there is a company, they hire you, and you need a visa, you get a skilled worker visa for that. you can do the same, normally called self-sponsorship. But again, I think we will leave the most interesting bit for the third part of our discussion. So overall, I really hope everyone who is attending this webinar at least understand the overall concept that companies in the UK need sponsor license from the Home Office to hire migrants who needs a visa basically to work in the UK. And we need to be in mind that since Brexit, it also covers all the Europeans, Norwegian, etc., who are still sometimes surprised somehow that they need a work visa to stay here and work in the UK. And it's normally a three-stage process. So if the company identify the candidate, don't have a license, they need to get the license first. Then after that, they need to apply for a certificate of sponsorship for this particular workers they will be hiring. And after that, we are looking into like application for actual skilled worker visa. In order to get a license, so obviously we do work with companies a lot, with our corporate clients to get those licenses, and more importantly, to maintain those licenses, because especially after 2024, when there were so many applications for the licenses and statistics, it's like 20-30% rise in applications. In fact, the Home Office is now very angry with that, and they're trying to do more compliance visits for existing license holders. They try to do pre-license interviews, every request for like additional certificates of sponsorship from the companies who already hold a license. Again, they request more information, so they try to refuse, try to suspend the licenses, etc. So they're trying to show that they try to keep the number low. So in order not to get into that problematic situation, there are a few key points our corporate clients should know. So first of all, we are talking about a very good HR system in place. So someone who is responsible for the license within a company, so it would be like authorizing officer and level one user, it can be the same person, it can be two different people. So these people, they at least need to know that, okay, what are the main sort of HR responsibilities here. So we do keep, like, let's say, a copy of every employee's passport. We do keep a copy of entry form. We have actually a pension scheme for the company, and we know the name of our pension scheme because, surprise, some of the clients, when they were interviewed, they didn't know which pension scheme the company is running. Just fair enough, they have accountants, but still, that's one of the questions, for example, for pre-license interview. The Home Office want to be also sure you have some system to monitor migrants, to monitor their absences, to monitor their holidays. And during interviews, they can literally ask for like screenshots from software or screenshots from like folders, etc., to show, yeah, you have a system in place. And obviously, if you are talking about newly registered companies, they want to make sure there are some operations. So if you, let's say, you registered your company relatively recently, like January 2025, then you want to apply for the license and you show empty bank account. That might be a reason for refusal, because they want to see that there are some operations and there are some money in the company to actually pay the migrant salary. Because you might know the minimum salary for the migrants, it's just like a threshold, it's 38,700. Those who are like new entrants, like students, let's say, those switching from graduate visas, there are some discounts, we will call it, like a 30%. So it's basically around 31,000. But then if you're not falling within that category, it's almost 40K. And obviously not every newly registered business is able to pay this amount of money. So overall, yes, skilled worker visas can be asked for like up to 5 years, can be 1 year, can be 3, can be 5. Normally, giving advice to our corporate clients in terms of visa duration, we do advise to split it into 2 rather than paying 5 years straight away, because it's obviously higher costs for that, because Home Office charges for each year extra money. So normally we advise to split it into 2 and 3 or 3 and 2 to, be more financially efficient. All right, in terms of issues, so we discussed one of the major issues identified by the Home Office during those interviews in terms of having a proper HR system and monitoring migrants. And as I mentioned, another current issue is additional requests for information, additional requests for documents, and high volume of visits, higher volume than usual, of actual premises visits and pre-license interviews. I think we should switch to the next slide and discuss self-sponsorship. So overall, we already touched upon this. What is it, self-sponsorship? It's the same structure. We're talking about sponsor license for the company, certificate of sponsorship, and a skilled worker visa. But our skilled worker, our migrant, will be holding shares within that company. That's why it's so-called self-sponsorship. So the process would be identical in terms of the application. Again, the company will need a sponsor license, then certificate of sponsorship, then a visa application. However, if we are talking about, again, newly established business, the most typical request we received for this self-sponsorship visas is when, for example, we have graduates who finished university, currently on graduate visas, interested in establishing their own business, can't do it on Innovator founder visa because their business idea is not actually fully fitting within those requirements. So they're considering this self-sponsorship route. So in order to do it, so first of all, we ask, do you have someone as a business partner, for example, who is British or settled in the UK? Because it is a requirement for the sponsor license to have someone within a company who's responsible for the license and who is British or settled. It's also allowed for global talent visa holders and for Innovator founder actually visa holders to be those authorizing officers level 1 users. But mostly we are looking for British or settled. So once we have that person, we can start considering this way, because otherwise you can't be a director in your own company, being migrant and sponsoring yourself for a visa. You need this second person who kind of responsible for you from immigration perspective, in the case of the Home Office at least. So that's step number 1. Practical step number 2, we always advise don't rush to register a company, because once your name is on the company's house, that you are a director of this business and 100% owner, even if you later on move the shares around, remove yourself from directorship, the record is still there. So the Home Office will look into this case when they assess the company for the sponsor license application in a bit more suspicious way, because they can see, oh, so this person was a director, was holding shares, now maybe holding less shares, and they're applying for a skilled worker. Is the vacancy is genuine here, or they're just trying to sort of buy themselves a visa because they're holding high position and they're majority shareholders? So for this reason, we always advise clients, think about structure and planning first before you go for registration, because sometimes it would be smarter to identify this British settled person, register a company, they will be a director in that company. Our migrant can be a shareholder, but ideally less than 50% shareholder. So again, our director, for example, who is British, will be holding more shares. And then between those two people, there is always an opportunity to sign a private call option agreement, shareholding amount of our migrant if they hold, let's say 90% in fact, or want to hold 90% in fact. So they can sign call option agreement, which will basically allow the other person hold shares on behalf of the migrant for the next 3-5 years, depending on what you've written down in this contract. But this is a private agreement. You don't need to show it to the Home Office. You don't need to upload it to the company's house, etc., etc. So normally it solves the problem for us. Ilya, was it a hint that we need to move on, or I can continue?
No, you can continue. Sorry for that. That was just a lag.
Okay. So this is a second major thing to obviously think about in terms of planning ahead. And again, before applying for license, make sure you do have some money on bank account, some traction, ideally some operations in terms of like getting money from clients already, paying for, let's say, premises, etc., because there will be obviously a set of documents you need to supply with your sponsor license application. So it's at least 4 documents plus a cover letter answering all the necessary questions. And those 4 documents for especially newly established businesses normally include like pay away registration, employer's liability insurance, because those are anyway mandatory for the business, bank account, again, as I mentioned, transactions would be really important. And then some of the clients rely on lease agreements, some get VAT registrations. Obviously, those who operate for a couple of years are able to show some tax returns for the company, CT600, etc. So then it depends really on your business situation and like what documents are easier to provide. But at least 4 of them is a must to even go for sponsor license application, regardless whether it's self-sponsorship route or more classic employment. I think we covered major problems which are currently existing in the industry and sort of major process steps. So maybe we have some questions.
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Alexandra, for giving us the overview of those 3 routes. So what we are offering from our side and what I can add is that we will be able to provide a service for all of those 3 routes and provide expert guidance on the documents, assistance with compliance, so everything that Alexandra mentioned, and we'll be going through in the questions as well. So it means that there can be always issues with the compliance from home office where they can ask some certain questions about your either Innovator founder visa or self-sponsorship or sponsor license in general. So we'll be able to assist on both the steps of applying for it and then holding it on your company as well. And so therefore we can go into the next slide, which is our Q&A. Also, we are offering special consultation, so you would be able to save your costs, because usually we charge £95 for consultation, but we are offering £45 for 45 minutes with Alexandra. You can scan this QR code to book it through. And also, we would like to announce the new webinar that we will be running for the sponsor license compliance. So for those of you who was interested to specifically apply for the sponsor license for their company or either self-sponsorship as well for themselves, we would be able to invite you for this and welcome you to this webinar for the session and talk more about it. So let's go directly to let me just stop sharing the screen. We'll be able to go to the question section. So we do have 3 questions. Let me just go one by one. So the first one is, so for the Innovator founder visa, if you won't be able to get 2 out of, so there are requirements that you need to fulfill in order to get to ILR. So if you won't be able to fulfill 2 of them, what can you do about it? And what shall I do in general? The person asks.
Okay, yeah, that's a good question overall, and we actually dealt with something like that literally in December, just before Christmas, with a very urgent 7 days sort of deadline submission. So basically, there is always an option to get an extension instead of going for ILR. However, the way the process works, so before, so you got your endorsement, you got your Innovator visa, you spent here 3 years. Then in order to either extend it, because you can't satisfy ILR requirements, or for example, you can't satisfy some other requirements, like you can't pass life in the UK test, or you can't, for example, satisfy residence requirements, you had too many absences, so it's again, you'll need to go for extension, but you'll need to come back to the endorsing body, and overall you'll have some meetings with endorsing body during the length of your visa anyway. So you come back to your endorsing body and they need to provide you another endorsement confirming that yes, you're satisfying requirements for indefinite leave to remain, or you're not satisfying, therefore they're giving you endorsement for extension. So yes, it's possible to still stay in the UK, but instead of applying for ILR, you will need to extend. For extension, the Home Office will still ask for a lot of documents, apart from like original like business plan, original endorsement, plus recent endorsement for like, let's say, extension. They will ask for proof of registration of the business, operation of the business. They will literally ask for all bank statements for the last 3 years. They will ask for invoices. They will ask for contracts with your clients, whether it's like business clients or individual clients. So they will be assessing the situation overall and see like, was there any progress done? So if it was literally just like company registered, but nothing happened, even if endorsement for extension is granted, the Home Office can turn it down and say, well, unfortunately, there is not enough progress even for extension. That's why when we advise clients, we say, well, first of all, think ahead. And secondly, always think about finances first. So make sure there are operations, there is a turnover, because that's a crucial part for the Home Office when they decide even if you're not qualified for ILR, whether even to grant you an extension. I think that covers question, but yeah, if there is a need for clarification, let me know.
Yeah, great. Then obviously they can book the paid consultation with you. All right. So then the second question is, we are planning to apply for sponsor license. Are there any audits or checks that Home Office runs during the application?
Okay. We slightly touched on this one, but just to go again through the process. So obviously we collected all the necessary documents, and as I said, we're probably looking into like payway registration, employer's liability insurance, VAT, registration, lease of premises, and bank statements. We prepared cover letter, we submitted an application form, sent the documents. Then the Home Office has the right to come back to you. So it's not mandatory for everyone, but they pick some of the businesses, come back and say, oh, we actually want to run an interview with you before we grant you a license. So the authorizing officer, so the person who will be responsible for the license if it's granted, will be called for an interview. It's normally a 90 minutes online interview, like between an hour and 90 minutes. It starts from like questions, oh, are you well enough today to answer a few questions? So they do explain what's going on, asking if you're feeling fit and well for that, and run through the list of questions. So normally they are related to, again, HR procedures within a company and HR system, because before issuing a license, they want to make sure that, you know, first of all, company won't be hiring anyone illegally. Company won't be trying to like sort of fix the immigration system and like, let's say, hire someone on one position, but actually people is working in completely like other field or working for a third company, etc., etc. So they want to make sure the company will be compliant. If we talk about like examples, like what they will ask, yeah, the favorite question in 2024 for the interviews was which pension scheme your company has in place. And I think majority of our clients has like Nest, for example, but yeah, something to take into account. They can ask you, oh, how do you do right to work checks? One of the other questions. Show me how you track annual leave for the migrants and for other employees. And obviously, as authorizing officer, need to confidently respond to those questions. After the interview, they have a right to send like sort of a follow-up email asking to send some, like, let's say, screenshots of, again, of the same HR system they were like talking about. So normally they give like 5 to 10 working days. And relatively quickly, like after the interview, like normally within a week, clients get a decision whether licenses granted, or if not, like why it wasn't granted. Home office also has a right to visit physical premises, even like before the license is granted. However, since COVID, they run everything online. So it's only for already like existing license holders where there are suspicions that there are some illegal workers. So for example, it's quite often in like, let's say, within restaurants, that there would be someone in the kitchen who actually don't have right to work. So they literally pop by and check what's going on. Yeah, I think it's covered, but again, if any clarification required, let me know.
All right, great. And then we have a last question. So regarding self-sponsorship, so how much equity I can have as a self-sponsorship applicant in or on my company? Well, yeah, it means on the company.
Okay, yeah, that's actually also a very, very good question, because the Home Office since 2021, when the rules really like significantly changed for skilled worker visas, so before that we had a 15% limit for all skilled workers for the shareholding in a company. And then this rule was removed, and that's how this all self-sponsorship sort of option started. So technically, you can even hold 100% of shares, and it's legally allowed. And especially there are a few positions within the SOC codes, like which qualifying for skilled worker visas. So, for example, cafe owner position or hair and beauty salon position, like hair beauty salon owner, cafe owner, etc. So it's already means that person who is applying under this SOC code will be holding some shares. And we had successful cases where even 100% of ownership was all right in Home Office's eyes. However, it's very, very difficult sometimes to prove genuine employment like requirement to say that, yeah, we are satisfying that, because obviously if someone holds 100%, they will get hired because it's their company. Because of that, we normally say the safest way is to have less than 50%. So if you have less than 50%, most likely the Home Office won't question further and further and like try to reject the application. But more than 50% is still possible. I would say we'll need to look into specific circumstances of your business, like how long it's operating in the UK, or is an overseas entity. Because, for example, we had a business where 100% wasn't a problem, but it was in a US business which was operating, and operations were at a level of like 500,000 turnover every year. So they were just essentially were opening a branch in the UK. But yeah, that wasn't an issue at that point. The Home Office was happy because they could see the traction. They could see that in another countries that was a success. But if it's something from ground up, I would say 100% would be too risky.
All right, so that's all the questions. Then, then in this case, we can finish this webinar. So for those who have attended it, thank you for your time. We really hope that this information that we provided was helpful. If you need any further assistance and want to have a direct consultation with Alexandra, then you can book it through the QR code on your screen. And we will also send out email to those who have attended with this information and additional information about the webinar and future webinars. And thank you once again, and have the good rest of the evening.